Okay, let's keep one more minute. Okay, thank you very much for being here. I think I don't have to introduce this speaker again, because you know him very well. So Fran is going to present us the results of his thesis about environment in cluster with J-PLUS. So, whenever you want, all yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending here. You know, I'm Fran Arizo, and I'm going to present my results, my thesis. I did for 4 years with the title of the study of the environment on galaxy clusters is using J-PLUS with different proxies. So basically, the main idea is to know how the environment affects the galaxy evolution in the surroundings of the galaxy cluster. So basically, we will have a scientific introduction to put in context. Then we'll show some results from the first part of the thesis about the stellar mass function of collision of subatomic galaxies in J-PLUS at low redshift. And then the main part of the thesis is the work on the environment, the impact of the cluster environment on the point structure. Then this will be the observational results. We will compare it with GAEA, that is an analytical model, and we will have some main conclusions. So for the first point is to know the difference between dark matter and baryons and how it creates the main structure of the universe. So as you know, the lambda CDM, the dark matter are the gravitational, what creates the structure, gravitationally speaking, of the universe. And when this creates this halos, dark matter halos, the baryons, basically the gas stars that are from this part of the universe, it creates goes to this potential well and creates these galaxies. So as you can see here in this TNG simulation, let's focus on the dark matter simulation box and also the luminous masses, how this structure of the universe, as we can see the galaxies that are clumping in galaxy clusters with the filaments and the voids. And there is how the baryonic matter, these stars with the galaxies are following the dark matter. So then having this cosmic web that is basically covered with galaxy clusters that are the biggest nodes, the most massive part of the structure of the universe, that are linked with the filaments and voids. We can now study the environment of the galaxy clusters. We study the galaxy clusters, the most massive galaxy clusters, 10 to the 14 stellar masses with redMaPPer, as we will see later. And just to comment the basic structure of a relaxed galaxy cluster with the DCG in the center, the brightest cluster galaxy, surrounded by the intercluster light, and all these satellite galaxies that are going to be in our work, and compare also with the field galaxies. If you make zoom in, basically we divide in star-forming galaxies and quenched galaxies due to the star formation that they have. So the main question that we want to answer is how does the environment affect the galaxy evolution in galaxy cluster, and in which are the mechanisms that quench galaxies in galaxy clusters and fields. So for this we have to build population of galaxies depending on the star that they form. basically star-forming ones that they create stars, and the quiescent ones that they do not create stars or little amount of stars. So basically, these galaxies are from the star-forming main sequence, and they go down in the red sequence. We will not focus on the green valley, but basically there are two main ways to a galaxy to be quenched, to be from star forming to quenched galaxies. So basically, we're going to name the environmental quenching. It's basically very important in this thesis, in ways like ramp persistivity, harassment and starvation. We call it nurture, and also mass quenching. That this is basically because of the stellar mass of the galaxy, how it evolves basically in the canonical evolution of the galaxy cluster of the galaxy. So the main question that we want to solve is, fixed stellar mass, different stellar masses. Does the cluster environment increase the probability that a galaxy is quenched? So there is an overquench due to the environment of the galaxy cluster. So for this, we need some observables. So the first one is the most important to start. Main it is the stellar mass function, and we can see here the total one of all these galaxies from 2013, and we see the typical curve. So basically, the stellar mass function tells us the number density, the number of galaxies by stellar mass B. It's going to be the main idea on the whole thesis. We can divide this stellar mass function into big populations, star forming and the quiescent ones, and we can see the difference on the shape of these two stellar mass functions. As we can see here, the lower part of the stellar masses, we have more star-forming galaxies, and in the upper part of the stellar masses, we have more quenched galaxies. For characterize this, we normally use a single Schechter function. In our case, just to comment that it's characterized by three parameters. Basically, the characteristic stellar mass is when it passes from the power law mass behavior to the exponential decline, basically, this region, and also the low mass slope that tell us the slope on the low mass stellar mass function, and tell us if we have more or less galaxies in the population. So now that we have the stellar mass function, we can obtain the quench fraction that is going to be essential to our study. So having the quench fraction is the number of quenched galaxies that are divided by the total amount of them. So basically, if we have the stellar mass function of this population, for example, here, we can obtain the quench fraction. Look at the difference of the quench fraction in red between the clusters, the galaxies inside the cluster, the galaxy cluster, and in the field. So there is a difference, as we will see. So having this parameter, the quench fraction, we can try to separate between the mass quenching and environmental quenching. So the important thing here is having the quench fraction. We can have the mass quenching efficiency to know if the galaxy has been quenched by its mass, basically. And here, the important part is how it evolves at a fixed environmental radius, for example, the center of the cluster. And we can see that basically the most massive galaxies are quenched due to its mass. This is the normal. So in our study, we are going to fill the gap at low redshift. In a similar case, we're going to study environmental quenching. So basically, this is the complementary one. So at a fixed stellar mass, you can see how the environment affects the quenching of the galaxies. We can see here, basically, at intermediate stellar masses of galaxies, the environment, when we go to near to zero radius to the galaxy clusters, are more affected than in the field. So we are also going to fill this gap of this redshift in this study in a low mass. So for this, we need the statistics. We need the surveys, basically. So in literature, we have a lot, and historically, we have the typical white band filters like SDSCs of far stars that are that have been doing a lot of science of this. But the thing is that this lacks of a good characterization of redshift and stellar parameters, galactic parameters like stellar masses, due to we are lacking some the 4000 break sometimes to characterize correctly, or some emission lines to characterize correctly redshift and stellar mass parameters. So for this, we can say, well, why photometry and not spectroscopy? Well, spectroscopy is more accurate to obtain different parameters and redshift, but it also has some problems of aperture corrections and lack of Pascal coverage. So for this to have a compromise, we are going to work, as you know, with J-PLUS, in this case DR3, that is a set of 12 filters that combines broadbands and medium narrowband filters to characterize correctly the redshift and the galactic parameters like stellar masses and stellar emission rates. So the main questions that, as I said, is how does environment, particularly the cluster environment, affect galaxy evolution, as you know. So for this, we will derive completeness-corrected the stellar mass function with J-PLUS. We will measure the quench fraction as a function of stellar mass and environment. We try to separate these two main ways to quench these galaxies, or can be complementary with environment, and first with redMaPPer catalog. We will characterize with the environmental quenching and the mass efficiency quenching, and we will then compare the observation with GAEA, that is a semi-analytical model. So I will start now with some methodology and results from the first paper published. The stellar mass function of collision and star-forming galaxies at low redshift. As I said, we use J-PLUS survey, as you will know. It has a wide field of view. You can see here an example of the field of view with some galaxies from scenario 2019. You can see the efficient curves, and they said the spectral energy distribution with the 12 filters of J-PLUS compared with an SDSC spectrum. This is what we are going to construct and to obtain for all the galaxies of our sample. So for this, we need a big galaxy sample. With J-PLUS DR3, we select the galaxies. We make a magnitude cut in corrected magnitude R20, less than 20, and with a photometric redshift between 0.05 and 0.20. We have finally almost 900,000 galaxies after masking quality cuts. So then we need the photometric redshift that we didn't obtain it. It was based on in the FAR, thanks to Hernán Caballero. But what we did is compare the photometric redshift with the spectroscopic work from Beck et al. 2019 that was from SDSS spectroscopy. And basically we obtain a nice very low scatter, and we improve almost 20% in quality from there. Now that we have fluxes and we have redshift, we can now use a fitting program like CIGALE that we set a model grid with different modules. And with this program, makes Bayesian comparisons, and we obtain some posterior outputs like stellar masses, star formation rates, and in the last mega years, and the specific one that is basically the division of these groups. These are some examples of the set fitting with circles the data from the fluxes from J-PLUS DR3 and in red circles the model. Here is an example of a quenched galaxy and a star formula. So now we have the stellar masses and the star formation rates. So we have to compare it with some data to know if we are doing well with obtaining these parameters. So we compare it with Duarte and Puertas, 2017. Basically, it's a spectroscopy study, aperture corrected, and we said that our comparison with them, with the star formation rate, is 0.44 scatter, 0.20 in stellar mass, and in the specific star formation rate is 0.34. It's a little less of star forming because basically we are dividing these two components and we are getting rid of the errors on redshift. So now that we have these parameters, we can try to split in both populations. That it's a crucial part of our study. So here we have the star-forming galaxies and the quenched galaxies. We divide this region basically with a minimum of a double Gaussian fit, and we obtain a value of a specific star formation rate in logarithm of -10.2. That is quite normal compared, for example, with GAEA works. And we obtain these numbers of star forming and quenched galaxies. So to have an idea, we have these galaxies, but we need, because the survey or our sample is magnitude limited, we have to correct from it. So basically, the main idea is that we obtain finally the galaxies that are above this fit of the lines, but by different populations that we have, for instance, star forming galaxies, and we are completely corrected in redshift, depending on the population, and 10.5, 10.4, depending on the population. But basically, even at lower masses, we obtain quite good results, as we will see. So basically, we also compute the comoving volumes. This is basically a weight for each galaxy, to try to weight more the galaxies that are dimmer, because at higher redshift we are not able to observe the most remote galaxies. That's a volume correction. So also an important part is the uncertainties. So for this, and to not take more amount of the errors, to not overestimate the errors, basically we make a bootstrapping. So for each bootstrap, we compute the number density for each population, we compute the quenched fraction, and the construction for our case would be the median of the bootstraps. So this is also not to overestimate the quenching fraction due to this the number density are basically they are covariant. So these are the first nice results from the first paper. This is the stellar mass function for our case in J-PLUS for the quenched, the star forming, and the total galaxies. Also fit with a single sector function. We can see here, we can see the difference at low stellar mass, and we have less quenched galaxies, and we have more star forming galaxies, and the other way around. We have more quenched galaxies at high stellar masses than star forming. So some numbers, some results of the fit of the single sector fit. The difference in the characteristics of mass between the quenched and star forming is around 35 37 index, and the difference in, as I said, in the low mapping flow is 0.47. So now we compare with literature with the total stellar mass function. Nice results. Our work is the orange circles, and is normally compared with literature with 0.1, 0.1, 0.15 index. To compare with the spectroscopy, with SHU, with DESI, and with bulk with the historical one. We also compute the star-forming stellar mass function of J-PLUS, and the quiescent one. As we can see here, basically the difference, our results, in this case are the blue triangles, and red squares are basically in between the literature. We take into account the total uncertainty in the statistical and the systematic. Basically, the systematic is the error that we could have in splitting both populations. So the following plot is basically, now that we have the stellar mass function, we can compute the quench fraction. For our case, the J-PLUS is the dark red circles. I compare with SHU from DESI and from plane, spectroscopic and photometry. What we can see here important for low stellar masses, the quench fraction is around 20%. And if we go to high stellar masses, beyond 11, basically the quench fraction is over 90%. And we have an increase of 40% per decade in stellar mass, which are the normal trend. And the important thing here for next studies of the environment is that because the quench fraction is a ratio, it is less sensitive to the global stellar mass function and to the normalization systematic. Other interesting and important part of that. And now we go to the main part of the thesis, that is the impact of cluster environment on the quench fraction of redshift. So now that we set the framework with nice results for J-PLUS, we can now make basically a cross match with a cluster catalog, in this case redMaPPer. What the cross match is going to do is only to set the galaxy clusters. So we cross match the J-PLUS and redMaPPer to obtain the center of the galaxy clusters. And also we obtain from their cluster catalog the photometry redshift, the richness, that is basically a mass proxy, and the radius. So the big idea is that we are going also to try to obtain the construction, and to know if the construction is different at different cluster-centric distances. So for that we make different subsamples for our study. This is the main idea. And we compare also with the field. So for this, we make a richness redshift selection. Basically, redMap has these specifications. They work between 0.08 to 0.20, very similar to our previous work from 0.05 to 0.20. And their sample is basically richness over 20. For that, we obtain 347 clusters. And also for comparing with literature, we also obtain another sample with which is rated like 30. Richness is related with the stellar mass from these equations from CINET 2017. And to let you know how is the methodology to work to obtain the different subsamples. Here we have the cluster center, and we set different distances in radius, in R lambda and RH. Basically, RH is related with the bigger radius. We also set a window in redshift of 0.25, basically very similar to compare with literature. And these are some questions about the R lambda with lambda and the H radius with lambda radius. So also we exclude the PCG because it has a particular, it's a very particular galaxy, and we define the field beyond 3 RLGs from all the selected galaxies in order to that these subsample of galaxies are not affected or are affected by the environment of the galaxy cluster. And what we obtain, we will see the construction. So the main result of the thesis, and we will see very nicely here, is the difference in the field compared to the innermost part of the galaxy cluster. As you remember here, this is the construction in the field with cut and without cut. In redshift, basically there is no difference, only in the lower mass part of the mass. And we can see here the gap. This is the main part. This from here we can derive a lot of conclusions. Basically, we see that over 11 on the stellar masses, the environment is not affecting the quenching of the galaxies, because the galaxies basically quench because due to their own masses and internal processes. But here in the middle part, between stellar masses of 10 and 11, we can see the gap, 20–25% of difference. So basically, we see that there is an addition of quenching due to the environment. And if we go from the outermost part of the galaxy clusters to the innermost part, we can see how the quench fraction, it goes up a little bit because between H radius 2 and 3, very similar to the field, because as you remember, until H radius 1, there is no interaction with the environment of the galaxy cluster. We go a little bit in with H radius 1 and 2. It's very similar as well. And here is the big change. We go from H radius 1 to 1.5 R lambda. Here we can see basically this jump. Now we see that the construction, the galaxies are more affected by the environment. We see here also that from this part is very similar. Stellar masses over 11 are quenched by its masses, but the difference is here. If we go a little bit inside, between R lambda and 1.5, very similar, a little bit of a step here. And if we go a little bit more, we can see also an important jump between 0.5 R lambda and R lambda. So this is a very nice conclusion of the construction that's affecting it's been affected by the environment. So as I say, so the next part is, as you see before, let's try to disentangle this part, the upper stellar mass part from the intermediate stellar mass part. It will affect it from the quenching track, the mass quenching and the environmental quenching. So for this, we make a 2D plot, as you remember, from Pinto's Castro, filling the gap here, and we see a similar trend. Basically, the yellowish color basically means that the galaxies are quenched due to the mass, almost one. And if we go for lower stellar masses, the mass, the quenching due to the mass is not as so important as the environment. And here also, in this case, we got the counterpart with environmental quenching efficiency. So for given stellar mass, we see how does the environment affect the quenching. As you can see here, the main part is at intermediate stellar masses, galaxies, between 10 to 11. We can see if we go inside the galaxy cluster, the environmental quenching is affecting clearly the quenching of the galaxies. Very similar from the comparison at different redshifts. So now we can try to also compare the shape of the stellar mass function to know what's going on. In this case, we'll focus on the quiescence and start forming stellar mass function at different cluster-centric distances with these colors. Basically, we are going to focus only on the shape. As you may know that the normalization, in order to compare different volumes, is not so easy. So basically, what I do is basically make a normalization in a stellar mass beam and plot the different stellar mass functions of quiescent and start forming. Basically, what we can obtain from here is that the quiescent galaxies grow when we are going inside the galaxy clusters at the stellar masses, and compared to the star forming stellar mass function, we don't see a very we don't see, basically the stellar mass function is very similar at different cluster-centric distances. Another nice result is also to compare the quench fraction of our work with other studies. It's not normally so easy because they work with different radius and definitions of distances. But if we compare in this case with Van der Burg and 2019 and 20 that have different redshift bits work with in a higher redshift, we see a very nice result. This is the inner region, so basically the galaxies that are more affected by the environment of the galaxy cluster, and we can see that our work that is in blue comparing with Van der Burg, that is with in purple, we don't see a big difference in the quench fraction. But in the field, we can see that there is more evolution at low redshift. You can see in our case from redshift 1 to 0.08 to 0.20, there is an evolution in galaxy in quench fraction, as you can see here. So at low redshift, the field is still evolving, not in the inner region of the galaxy. But we can see that at 0.5 or 7, almost we have a similar quench fraction. So now we have the observational data, and we can we will compare with a model with a semi-analytic model. So basically, we work with GAEA. That is a semi-analytical model that takes the dark matter and then simulations towards the major trace, and they make some. What GAEA does is make parametric prescriptions from the physics about cooling, transformation rate, feedback, chemical enrichment, and environment. We obtain from them typical parameters that we have been working: the stellar mass, transformation rate, type, halo mass, and positions to make the comparison of our observational work with this theoretical work. Just some numbers. We obtained the snapshot at redshift 0.01. I don't remember now. It's like snapshot number 58 or 59. It's a very big box. We set a limit in the galaxies over stellar mass of 10 to the 9. And the halo center is type 0. We set a halo limit in halo mass of 10 to the 14 stellar masses, and the satellites. So we are going to obtain our main type 1. We have these big numbers for the whole environmental sample. And what we do now from is to compare our results, observational results, to compare with this semi-analytical model of GAEA. And as we can see here, the total stellar mass function, our results with GAEA are very similar, are in proper squares, are very similar with literature from the Lucia as well. The only difference is basically at low stellar masses, because basically we are having a cap on magnitude, but this is very typical. And we compare with our study of J-PLUS in orange circles, and basically you can see that there is like a gamma difference. You can say that what's going on here. So let's try to split the population, and we see that there's something happening here. So we split in quiescent and star forming. We obtain the stellar mass functions, and we see that basically the big thing is that in the model, basically they obtain more star forming galaxies. And that's an issue. We don't know exactly what's going on, but we have they have an excess of star forming galaxies, basically in all range, and more specifically in the intermediate and low part of the stellar masses. So let's see what's happening. So we obtain also the quiescent fraction, or the red fraction is the same. Our points are the dark red points, and we compare with the GAEA results. In this case, we play also with different cuts in specific star formation rate from them. Just to take into account that they use -11, but with -11, the things doesn't work. We compare also with the Lucia, and this work with GAEA. We see basically that they are having less red fraction at low stellar masses. So they are more star forming galaxies. They have more. So to make just a comparison, just to remember, we have just to take into account that the observational data has problems of projections that has to be taken into account. But we see that this window is nice when compared with GAEA, and the projection effects that does not affect substantially to the quench fraction. So basically, to take into account that we are having here the projection effects, while in GAEA we shouldn't have it because we have all the. So just to take into account, just the final slides, we make the same. We compare the quench fraction of J-PLUS and GAEA. Our scatter points are from J-PLUS, and the lines are from GAEA. So basically here, if we focus in the right plot, we see basically a big problem. Basically, there are more star-forming galaxies at all stellar masses and at all cluster-centric distances. You see that basically the inner part follows quite nicely, but if we go outside, it drops drastically the quench fraction. Here is some pictures. Also, to compare the incremental quenching efficiency, note that the errors are very big, basically because this equation is troublesome. Basically, at high redshift, this high stellar masses, this equation diverges. So, but to see the trends, basically at -11 in the specific transformation rate, we see that there is an efficiency quenching less compared with our work from J-PLUS. And basically, the main conclusions, as I said before, we provide the J-PLUS a nice framework to compare, to work for to work with environment. To say that stellar mass sets a high mass quenching sequence. Basically, as I said, they have high stellar masses. The galaxies are quenched. The cluster environment adds a radial quenching channel, as I said, and the environmental changes the equalizing population of the star forming one. And we have some tension with GAEA that we nicely qualitative reproduce the trends, but it causes some tensions. And that's the final picture. Low-redshift galaxies quenching is governed by the combined effects of the stellar mass environment, and it will be relevant only within the viral radius of clusters. And J-PLUS has provided a local benchmark for galaxy formation model, different limitation in the current version. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fran. Very nice talk. Questions? I have one. When you compare with the spectroscopic brushes, what is the size of the sample for that comparison? How many galaxies do you have in common?
Well, from SDSS, I don't have the
Approximately.
20. I think it's in the. I don't remember, but it's a big number.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have it somewhere. Just the order of magnitude.
At least.
Okay.
You go to slide 63, thanks for putting it.
63?
Yeah. So this discrepancy with the semi-analytical models, you went over it very fast. What do you think is the reason why they underpredict the quench?
That's the key question.
Yes.
Basically, their prescriptions have to be tuned. I don't know exactly the reason. I thought with the Lucia, and they didn't give too much importance for this, but probably because they work with model prescriptions, which is a semi-analytical model. What we can try to change a little bit is the parameters of the model prescription and try to see if it can be adjusted to our results. But we don't know. We don't know exactly but that can be future work.
It looks to me like the model is dominated by the mass and is not taking into account enough
the environment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think more follow the question of one about the sample that you compare with the spectroscopy. So you saw two different histograms from the star formation rate, stellar mass. So the stellar mass a little bit like the distribution is like a more prominent to the right side. I don't know, you could put the slide 24. Any reasons about the comparison between your methodology and the spectroscopy? Tell us about it.
Why to compare?
Yes, the next
The next one?
The next one. The next one. When you show the histogram for this comparison between the physical properties.
Yeah.
Galaxy. Yeah,
That's
that one.
Okay.
Yeah, from the I think.
This is spectroscopy. It's a very
Just
nice,
spectroscopy.
Yeah, with Guardian Puertas. It's a very nice spectroscopy study. I have to correct it.
And you didn't compare with your photometric.
With the photometric redshift from them.
Or the properties.
I compared the properties of the star formation rates and the stellar masses.
Okay.
Basically. That's yeah. So the redshift I did because
from my ignorance, is this worrisome, this systematic shift of the
no,
masses?
it's normally a 0.1 dex, 0.2 is very normal due to the characterization of the sample. It's like one place.
Other thing there is that this is spectroscopic, but it's corrected from aperture.
Aperture, correct.
So point one can be on you or on them.
Two very little and silly and annoying comments. So, at the beginning, when in the introduction, when you mentioned the two mechanisms of quenching mechanisms, maybe to be coherent with the whole
This one?
presentation, just the order of the.
This one.
Yeah, because from this slide on, you always, if I'm not wrong, you always mentioning first the second one.
The massage.
Yeah, so maybe just making where.
Okay.
And the other thing is the J-PLUS paper is 2019, if I'm not wrong. The reference from Centro.
Something like this. 19.
Questions? No? Let's then again the candidate. You're dismissed.
Cuando tienes la. No.